Good to go. Yeah.
Good to go.
Yeah, good to go. 3
Back.
seconds in.
3 seconds in.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about coffee, but first we wanted to thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And please make sure to, subscribe, make a comment,
Mm-hmm.
give us some feedback, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
We always get back to
Sure.
the people that get to us. Every single
The
one
problem
time
is
it's
there's no
happened.
comment.
There were some comments at one
The other
point.
day, just literally a word that does not make any sense by this Korean little Korean kid. Heek. I think that's supposed to be laughing, but I don't know exactly what that means. Listen,
We're a big hit with the
I was
kids.
born and raised in Korea, and I did not understand what it was saying, or rather, wrote down. But I don't think it is any hostile, at least. So I think it's all good. I think he's one of our 47 subscribers.
Probably one of our biggest fans.
Yeah,
He probably can't even speak English, doesn't know what we're talking about.
exactly. Well, these guys are cool.
But on the topic of coffee, we
Right.
actually just released our first batch.
Yeah. It's called the Theory of Living coffee. How much did we produce?
We did
I mean, we're in
400
that.
pounds, right?
400
so
pounds?
it's
Okay.
about 528
Right.
bags worth of coffee at 12 ounces a
All
bag.
right.
So we've got that on Amazon, and
Mhm.
it's our first test run. So
Yeah.
we want to do a more robust blend
Mm-hmm.
next time, and work with the people that are producing the beans, the roasting. We use
Yeah.
the middleman here, so
Mhm.
there was an involved process,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like we were going to the farm,
Yeah.
looking through the beans, talking to the actual farmer, which is something we mentioned many episodes ago that we have an
Mhm.
interest doing with particularly Hawaii, because we were just
Right.
so blown away by their beans and the roasting.
I know.
It's like
Yeah.
totally
There hasn't been anything like
unique.
this so far. Honestly, to me at least. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know about you, but we've tried a lot of different beans. Even in Thailand. I mean, we're very impressed by the quality here. The baseline quality is very high when it comes to coffee. Not just the beans, but how they make it. Very. A lot of care goes into it. I was very impressed. Because again, we kind of avoid to use the word third world country. It's a developing country, I mean, in comparison, right? But the quality of coffee was not something I was expecting for sure from this country.
No, I mean, me either.
Yeah.
Which is strange, because last time I was here, it was 2017. And I drank coffee at that point, but I guess I didn't have as much of a defined palate at that point, so I didn't really even think anything about the coffee. To me, coffee was just coffee. But now,
Right.
having a much more deeper love and passion for it,
Mhm.
it's very easy to tell when you have a good cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And like you said, most places here, even though
Mm-hmm.
you'd be shocked to think you're going to get a good cup of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
you end up pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But I think what you were talking about with the Hawaiian coffee, it's almost unique in the way that kind of like an IPA of coffees.
Right.
There was like floral notes and very minor acidity,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of bitterness, and it was just pretty refreshing to get that in a cup of coffee, because
Yeah.
I think for most people, drinking coffee is like drinking this horribly bitter,
Mm-hmm.
kind of nasty
Right.
sludge.
Yeah.
And that was just not the experience when you have a different bean, specifically the Hawaiian ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why they use, heavily sugar, cream, milk, all this. Even espresso is more acidic, but it doesn't have to have the bitterness or unpleasant flavors. I mean, espresso can be strong, but very tasteful at the same time, enjoyable. I mean, that's the difference, right? That's where we draw a line between shitty coffee and a good coffee, quality coffee.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, this whole scene, the coffee scene that we are very familiar with today, has been only like a century or so. So that's really interesting to think about, because like we're from America. I mean, I'm from originally Korea. I remember my like it was all after the war, man. The introduction of spam, the American cultures and chocolate bars and things like that. They're all introductions from war. Because all like there were U.S. military bases, in all countries in Asia, in Japan. That's why they eat spam as well. I mean, Japan is by any means poor country, but they eat spam for that reason. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah,
they adopted it, after the World War II and during World War II, so 1950s, right, 45. And coffee is sort of the similar thing. So in Korea, I remember watching movies and TV shows set back in 50s and 40s. They didn't have word for it. They didn't have a word for it. They didn't know what to call it because we had never seen it before.
Wow.
So they literally called bitter water, bitter drink. That's how we called it in the 50s and 40s. We didn't have word for it. We didn't know what it was. We kind of knew what it does. You're kind of awake. It's better. But it was rich people's trait, not ordinary people.
Not affordable for most people. No. It's funny. I mean, talking about the etymology of the word, actually it borrows from a lot of origins. I mean, coffee was coffee from the Dutch. Yeah. And this is Wikipedia. I'm not an expert, right? So then. The Ottoman, the Turkish Empire, they borrowed from the Arabic, which actually was derived from a word that was...
vigorous.
Yeah, vigorous. And then there was another one. There was a verb attached to it, I believe it was qua, but it essentially translates to a lack of hunger, referring to the...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, referring to the effect, obviously, that you have.
Yeah. Huh. Did not know that.
So it's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of... when you get that far, and that's not even that far back. When you get back 15th century, there's a lexicon and people that particularly study this types of things, scholarly field to try and understand the vocabulary and the dictionaries and link them all together. But it's very interesting that even the word we're using translates directly to how it affects us and what its actions and its properties are. I don't know. I don't hear words very much and think that word, we use it because it actually means something. Right. Like a physical action or a physical effect from it. It's very interesting.
Right. I guess it was because apparent to, I think one of the origins theories is that in one of the Arabic countries, this guy saw his lamb or sheep took a bite of coffee bean, and then wouldn't go to sleep entire night. That's one of the theories. I think what's so interesting is that even though the coffee hasn't been around that long, we don't have clear origin. That's the craziest part to me. We're not talking about 4000 BC Egypt. We're talking about fucking 15th century, and we don't even know the origin of it. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to me. We even know the secret chamber in a fucking pyramid. You know what I mean? That was built literally 6,000 years ago. Now we don't know the origin of coffee that happened about 6 centuries ago.
Yeah, I guess
that's crazy.
I know. It seems like the easiest thing they can do is just basically say, when it's popularized based off trade. That's typically, it seems like, how they link to say, 15th, 16th century. We started actually exporting, trading coffee, whether it's through Yemen or specific regions, and it became one of these things that people consumed, but not like we consumed. Yeah. Actually, one of the first groups of individuals that consumed coffee that we're aware of were, Islamic, the Sufi, Suffi. I think that's how you pronounce it. And they would do it for the effects to stay awake or Ramadan, prayer and things of that nature. Yeah. And then that was also, funnily enough, met with some controversy because it was haram, so forbidden because they compared it to potentially alcohol.
Right.
Right? So it was actually banned at some point
Right.
and then re-legalized. And there was this back and forth, and there was coffee houses that were developed. And then now there's some attribution that actually coffee was a gift from God given by Archangel Michael came to Muhammad and said,
Yeah.
oh, coffee here, this is in the place of basically wine, because you can't drink wine
Yeah.
in Islam. So that was, seeing that history and hearing it is incredibly interesting, because I think for the average person, at least in Western civilizations or places that are further removed from more Islamic belief and that kind of structure, don't realize this is tied very strongly into those religious roots.
Yeah.
And has a lot of like religious attributes. And it's
Yeah.
very, very cool to see and kind of refreshing to have a bit of an idea of the history surrounding coffee.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Because I think most people think coffee, oh yeah, Italian. You know, that's all you think, or you just think Europe.
Well, yeah, because the largest portion of the element of coffee today, culture today, is espresso. I think that's why we largely attribute it to Italians. But surprising enough that even French press, I thought like this is older than espresso, but no, it's actually younger.
Wow.
I know. The original espresso machine was invented in 1884, so almost right after the first Industrial Revolution, which makes sense, right? Because you use high pressure, high temperature, right? Up to like between 1 to 9 bars. There's a high pressure, so you need to have that. I mean, basically espresso is, you can say that in that sense, the direct result of the first Industrial Revolution, right? I mean, without the first revolution, then you wouldn't have
how would
espresso, yes. But anyway, 1884, the original invention, which was iterated many times for improvements. But French press came along in 1907, something like that. It's
almost 20 years later.
It's a newer invention than espresso machine.
Wow.
I was very surprised too, because this is all mechanical, right? I mean, there's nothing about. This is just a pot event essentially. So I was very surprised to know that French press came along later than espresso machine.
There's a lot of interesting things like that. I'm sure you've heard the same thing with, matches and then a lighter. You would obviously think, oh yeah, matches, of course, more primitive. But it was a lighter that came first, a piece of flint. Yeah, a lighter first.
Huh.
Because a match, is coated, it's a chemical, and you have a reaction based on that. So
right. It's more primitive, I guess, lighter.
Yeah, but you would think,
other than the content
somebody
of
asked
oil.
you, immediately to your head, you would just be like, oh, of course the match came first.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, really?
Yeah.
But similar situation. I actually didn't know that about the French press either. I guess the primary brewing method for the longest time must have been pour over.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There was just a book written by I forgot the gentleman's name, but he wrote this book, prominent book about coffee history, and he categorizes the Northern Europe of more pour over drip coffee, and Southern Europe is more espresso. That's how it categorizes North and South of Europe.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Was there any
Traditionally.
Did he find any reason why that was the case? I mean, southern climate, I imagine, is warmer, but I can't see. It'd be hard to make a correlation, I guess. But did he arrive to a conclusion?
I don't know. I've never read the book, but I guess there are the primary methods, brewing methods, right? I don't know exactly why. I don't know why, but I just assume that those are the longest and most reliable method, because now you take a French press mocha. I think a mocha pot, and that was pretty late too. So you're looking at just drip coffee, or actually if you go to some Arabic countries, I think they put just like coffee, ground coffee, and just hot water.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't even have a filter.
If I'm not mistaken, that's very similar to a Turkish coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Turkey's, yeah, exactly. So you just drink it, right? So if you look at the old methods, it's basically just hot water and coffee ground, right?
Yeah.
So there isn't much if you take out French press, mocha pot, and espresso machine. I mean, it's just hot water and coffee,
methods, right?
right?
Just trying to extract the flavor.
Yeah, just actually an extension of that discussion is the like brief history of American coffee culture. So after World War II, just like any other country, they started drinking more coffee. But all that up to like 70s and 90s, the primary brewing method was to use percolator. Percolator that uses basically hot boiling water, goes through a small chamber that has coffee grind. So for that reason, it relies on hot water. Therefore, the quality of coffee isn't so great, because now we all know that even espresso, yes, we use high temperature and pressure, but nearly boiling water. Well, there's a huge difference. I exactly don't know what's happening chemically, but by now we all know that we don't use actual boiling water for.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on the brewing method, but yeah, like hot boiling water isn't, I guess, good. I'm not a coffee expert, but
wait, you're not a coffee expert? We start a coffee business and you're not? Oh my God.
I mean,
We're
near
never
expert, okay? Near expert. But I mean, well, I guess I can, start to look into all those, the details, but the percolators did not make a good quality coffee for that reason. And then that was the main brewing method for Americans for a long, long time. So actually they call 40s and 50s not, wait a second. So, up to the point where the European coffee culture started bloom in America after World War II. That period they call the dark age of American coffee.
Wow, we have a dark age?
Yeah.
American history, it's so rough, There was a time where we didn't have good coffee, didn't know how to make it, use it.
It's crazy to think that even in New York City, in 70s up to even 90s, early 90s, you wouldn't find like Italian espresso bars.
Wow, that seems very hard to imagine.
I know. There were, the oldest one is, I think, Cafe Reggio in New York City. And that's the oldest one since like 50s or 70s, something like that. So a lot of artists used to go there, like even Hemingway in Paris. Yeah, there were several places, like few places they used to go, right? I mean, I used to go, I've been there, one of the, it was not a cafe, well, I guess it's sort of a cafe, but close to Moulin Rouge. There's a little restaurant. I went there like 6 a.m. in the morning. I was so excited. Ooh, Hemingway. I used to eat there, man. I was so excited. I went there too goddamn early, hour before opening. And that's when I met those gentlemen. You remember?
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, there were two French guys were headed to this red light district or Sacred. I don't know, but
6 a.m, by the way. Think about that.
After a big party, I guess. They suggested that, we're from, like, you want to go together? Best sex in France? I'm like, no, I'm good, man.
You're like, I'm just looking for the coffee.
But the Cafe Reggio was one of those places, the famous artists, and, all those people used to hang out there because this is one of the few, like one of the only, I guess. And then sort of like that expanded to more and more European coffee shops started opening in America, but first in California and New York. New York, I think, was the first, like, the city and a state.
I mean, it makes sense. Also just being a port, right?
Yeah.
And immigrants, exactly. So you just have the access to all these different cultures.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously can get access to the supplies to do it as well.
Right.
And then just a huge industry in regard to, like, people are industrious there.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a way to make money.
True. That's a good point,
tradition.
actually. The culture, right? I mean, that has nothing to do with the coffee itself, but the industrious the part of the culture, right? People are so busy all the time, they're hustle. So, like espresso is like it's like that, right? I mean, the quickness, but it's also effective. Like I think that's the characteristics of the espresso.
Yeah.
So, like Italians, for example, they don't drink espresso in the morning. Like they drink cappuccino. That's more like a morning coffee. Cappuccino. It has espresso haters, okay? I'm talking about the espresso itself.
Yeah.
So in the morning they drink a cappuccino with a pastry. Typically, I mean we love to do it, even though we do intermittent fasting at normal times. But when we don't, like that's my
go-to.
Yeah,
it's definitely the go-to.
But that's what they usually do. Cappuccino, espresso is more like after dinner or during the day, something like that. When they need some extra boost, right? But I don't know why I started saying that. Well, in relation to New York culture,
industriousness
right?
of it.
A lot of immigrants hustling and all that.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I mean, it's hard to imagine now the world without coffee. It's so mainstream, so essential. I think most people are addicted to some type of caffeine. Maybe it's not caffeine. Maybe it's not coffee, but majority of people, at least in the U.S., take some form of caffeine, whether it's energy drinks, coffee, chocolate. Granted, that's a very small amount, probably a negligible amount of caffeine, but it does really give you that boost and that little bit of perk that's so nice. And I mean, you and I, every morning starts the same way. Coffee.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the best way to start your day, almost ritualistic when you're even preparing it. There's something just very satisfying about the preparation.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, we just do French press, so it's pretty straightforward, very simple. Nothing difficult, but it makes a good, consistent type of coffee every time. Of course, depending what beans you're using and which roast.
Yeah.
But even if I wasn't going to drink coffee, I think I'd still enjoy the process of waking up, boiling water, waiting for it. We have a kettle here, which is nice because it's so much quicker.
Electric kettle, yeah.
I'm so used to just boiling water on the stove and waiting, looking.
It literally like 10 times slower than electric kettle.
It's crazy how slow it is.
So slow.
Yeah.
But kind of finished the early progression of coffee culture in America because it's really short. So like the European style coffee bars started open around California and New York. And the reason I'm saying this is they're kind of interesting to see. The lineage is very small, like thin. That's what I'm getting at. So like Cafe Regi, what was that name again? I think
the
totally
first one
forgot. Yeah, Reggio.
I don't know how to pronounce
Reggio. I'm sorry. Yeah, Cafe Reggio. And others, and then you would see Pete's Coffee. Now
Pete's.
you know Pete's.
Oh yeah, very familiar with Pete's.
Originally, that was in California as well. I think in San Francisco, in the 70s, and I was somewhere there. And this guy was Dutch. He founded the company, and then the more interesting story out of this is that yes, there was sort of like the first, the next tier in terms of size and everything of European style coffee bar. But there was a regular to that coffee shop, and the gentleman was enthusiastic regular to the Pete's Coffee, and he was the founder of Starbucks.
I was just about to say, I bet you anything.
So that's why they adopted these words like, the words that ended with to, chino, like mochaccino, frappuccino. Those words don't exist in Italy. Those are all made up names, but they wanted to like mimic the names of Italian coffee. They put like to, chino, whatever. They just put those words to whatever they're making.
Wow, pretty smart marketing,
like Italian,
right?
But it's not.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that. That's crazy marketing because
it's kind of funny.
I literally had no idea. And then that was what, I guess, the 80s for Starbucks when they started? Or they started in the 90s, right? Early 90s?
70s, I think.
Oh, Starbucks was? Wow.
I think so.
They've been
but
in it for a while. Pike's Place.
The rise of it was, I think, I would say, all the 90s. Yeah.
I mean, you can't go anywhere in the U.S. without finding a Starbucks now.
I mean, that's when we started see a lot of Starbucks commercials in movies, and right. That's the 90s, right? I mean, the 80s movies don't really show Starbucks.
No,
but it's
definitely.
like 90s movies.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a cultural epidemic.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I said, when I was in the military in 2000, between 3 and 5, I read this book called Blue Ocean. I mean, still used in business and in economy. Blue Ocean refers to untapped market. Basically, that's what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tap into untapped market instead of saturated market. And one of the great examples that book used, along with other companies I forgot already, I think it was Intel or IBM, was Starbucks. Like, big portion of the book was dedicated to Starbucks. And they were talking about why Starbucks was so successful. Now we know a little bit better because of the history of coffee in America. Because, the quality of coffee wasn't that great. The baseline. The people didn't even know what good coffee means.
Yeah, I mean, coffee was diner coffee, right?
Yes. I mean, still, that's American coffee, isn't it?
I mean, I'm never going to turn my head up to diner. Yeah, when I go to a diner, I expect to get diner coffee.
Yes. Yes, the quality of coffee, objectively speaking, is trash in comparison, but I love that culture, man. I mean, it's so unique. Yeah. It's like an unlimited coffee, right? Basically.
Yeah.
Watered down.
It's completely watered down. It's been sitting in that pot that's never been washed all day, and
there's some comfort from it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Culturally, right?
I mean, we were talking about this earlier. Yeah. I was saying that the idea of a cup of coffee and a cigarette outside on the porch, or that kind of like diner room atmosphere. I don't even smoke cigarettes, but to me, there's a really big sense of romanticism attached to that.
Yeah,
and I think that imagery is so. Again, probably from the 90s and even the 80s, there's a huge scene that you see over and over again. Somebody smoking a cigarette and having their coffee. And I also grew up. My mom, she smoked and drank coffee, and she told my dad all the time, "John, don't talk to me until I've had my first cigarette and my cup of coffee." Because my dad was so annoyed.
Oh my god, dude! I've never known that.
Yeah, and you know my dad, so you're totally good.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the power of coffee right there.
That's the most gangster shit I've ever heard. Don't talk to me until I get my first cigarette and cup of coffee. You understand that?
She's serious about it, too.
Holy shit. That's crazy. Oh my god, it's 28 minutes in.
28 minutes? Oh my goodness, this is flying by.
So, a lot of things have changed. One of which is to actually properly end our free short version. Previously, we did not. Caused a lot of confusion, I heard. So, we decided to put an end mark to our free short version every time. So, thanks for listening. This week's free short version is a little longer than intended.
Our typical is one.
Yeah. But hey, you want to take over? I forgot that.
If you've got any, again, like we mentioned at the start, please like, subscribe, make some comments, and if you want to hear the full version, that's usually about 3 times the length of this one. Well, not this episode, but they're about an hour. We're going to be a little loose-ended, a little more free-form with the Patreon members. Language slack up a little bit, chill out. The way cooler version. If you want to come join us on the cooler version, you can check out our Patreon page. You subscribe as little as $5 a month. Get full access, and we appreciate it and help support us. So please just leave any feedback, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. So let's kick it back to the Patreon one now, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, guys. Bye.